right, welcome back, everyone. We are here with our second session of our sub-series spin-off anthology of our greater Proverbs series. So hope everyone is enjoying this kind of tangential rabbit trail. I guess we could define it as a rabbit trail, but I really do think I think it will help people. I really do want it to help people. I want it to give people just a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of understanding. And I am at the end. Stick with me at the end. I'm going to provide some suggestions, some like books, podcasts, things like that. Just a couple toward the end. So please stick with me. And if you want to do more financial education, you want to like kind of help yourself be better, then we'll do that at the very, very, very end of this podcast. So this one's going to be a little bit more data driven, and it's going to be a little bit more sciencey or mathy. So please bear with me. I'm going to try and make it shorter than the last one, because the last one was all about really hammering it home that behavior is really what we need to modify. We need to modify behaviors and actions, the things that we can control. But now I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff that is going on in the economy, things going on that we should be mindful of, that some of it, maybe a lot of it, we can't control. But if we control our behaviors, then we can better navigate some of the stuff going on, okay? So this one is going to be talking about things like inflation, interest rates, unemployment, recession, all these things that we might be hearing either in the barber's chair, talking about while checking out at line at the grocery store, or on the radio or whatever. Everybody's got their little take on it, because it is a big thing. It's a very noticeable thing happening right now. So let me walk through a couple of the problems that we're seeing, some things that are happening in our world right now. Now, some of these numbers may move or change depending on the exact day when this podcast airs or comes out on YouTube and on Spotify and the other podcast services. But even though they're not, even though they may not be exact, they are going to be pretty close, and you'll get the gist, okay? So one thing that's real big, or we're talking about a lot, people are talking about a lot in the economy and in life in general right now, is this idea of the interest rates. Interest rates going up, things happening with, just 6 months ago, right? 7-8 months ago, you could get a mortgage for, some people were getting them for less than 3% and stuff. So now that's definitely not the case. And the Federal Reserve, aka the Fed, people will say the Fed, but the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, is raising rates. They met in June and raised rates 0.75%. You might hear the term basis points, 75 basis points. So, just depending on how you look at that, basically 100 basis points is 1%. So each basis point is 1/100%. That's just a good way to think of it when you hear those things. So they raised it 50 basis points. That's half a percentage point. Anyway, how does this affect us? What does this mean? What does this mean for you? And again, this is about education. This is about financial education. If you don't care, you don't want to hear this, fast forward to the end, where I'm going to talk a little bit about the scriptural understanding of wealth and riches and things like that. That's going to be toward the end, so you can probably fast forward through half or 3/4 of this thing if you're just not interested. But let me explain a little bit how interest rates can affect us, right? Let's say you have a home loan. You're going to get a mortgage. You're going to build a house. You're going to buy a house or something. And let's say your loan's going to be $200,000, just for like kind of easier math. a 30-year fixed rate loan, and there are mortgage calculators and things that you can use to use some of this stuff, calculator.net, bankrate.com. I'll post some of these things I'm going to be referring to, some of the articles, some of the calculators, things like that. I'm going to post in the YouTube video so that you can check that out for yourself and maybe even run some numbers or whatever if you'd like to. But you can do this with like a car loan, you can do this whatever. But easy math, if you get a 3% 30-year fixed rate mortgage for $200,000, your payment is going to be roughly $840, $843, okay, somewhere around there. Let's just say $840 for, again, easy math you can do on the back of a napkin or in your head or whatever. And you are going to pay a total over 30 years. Now remember, you borrowed $200. You're going to pay back total, you're going to pay back $304, okay, let's just say $300,000. So you borrowed $200, you're paying back $300, that's $100,000 over 30 years of interest you're paying. Now, let's say that just goes up to 6%. This is how this affects people. Remember the payment was $840? Now the payment is $1,200. That's a pretty substantial increase, okay? You're talking $430,000, again, using just kind of nice round numbers, that you're going to pay back. Remember, you borrowed $200 from the bank. You're paying back $430. Yeah, you heard me right. That's $230,000 in interest. You are paying back more in just interest than you even originally borrowed over 30 years, right? So big numbers. Now imagine if that goes to 7 or 8%, even more. So as interest rates rise, credit is less accessible because it's more expensive, right? An $850 payment to a $1,200 payment, maybe you can do $850, maybe you can do $900, $950, but once it gets pushing past $1,000 or $1,100 a month, maybe you're like, nope, can't do it. So what's going to happen? People will use credit less, people will buy less. It will squeeze cash flow if people are getting into these things where they were anticipating paying less, but now they have to pay more, so they have less cash left over. Probably will squeeze and push demand down a little bit, so sales and things like that might go down. I'm not, projecting some kind of crash or anything in the housing market, and I think if people do that kind of thing, if people are just like, this is what's definitely going to happen, I think you can really write them off. I'm totally down with people saying, hey, here's the facts and here's what I think is going to happen, but here's maybe a counter argument. Here's some other ways it could go. But people that are just like, yeah, it's definitely going to go down this way, unsubscribe from them. Just don't listen to them because people don't know for certain what's going to happen. One of the guys I listen to, he says there's no certainties, there's just probabilities, right? Because nothing is absolutely certain. But the interest rates going up, it can be problematic depending on the situation that you are in. If you've got a home equity line of credit and you were paying 3.5%, 4.5% on that, maybe now it's 6.5%, 7.5%. That's a big difference, a big increase. You're going to go out and get a car, and the car loan was going to be 4%. Now it's 7%. Big difference. You can be spending $40,000 car, 7% interest. I mean, a couple $100 a month just in interest, depending on the term of the loan and all that. But again, trying to show how this affects people. Now, why is the Federal Reserve, why is the Fed increasing the rates like this? They are projected to meet in July and September, and the idea, the thought process is that they're going to continue raising those rates. Now, why are they doing this? Now, I mean, the story is to combat inflation. Now, you may have heard that word. It's a very hot topic right now. A lot of people in politics are all of a sudden discovering inflation as a problem. Now, can I just say something real quick? And this is not political in any way, but the masterminds behind the wheel at the Federal Reserve, in government, the brainiacs, the people that a lot of people choose to kind of just put them in power and let them run things and think for them. If you just go back 18 months, 24 months, not that long ago, first there was no inflation. Then there was some a little bit, but it's just transitory. It's just passing, no big deal. Now it's running red hot, out of control. We got to do something now. These people do not know what they're doing. Okay, they really don't. And so to put our trust in some of these institutions is, in my opinion, absolutely insane. I heard somebody say something recently, and I love it. I just kind of committed it to memory. They said, remember, in God we trust. Everybody else, we follow up. I loved it. I was like, man, that's so good. Because you really can't trust these, certainly not these people. You just can't. Now, the official inflation rates, according to BLS.gov, the CPI, you might have heard that term, the Consumer Price Index, it's kind of a measure of inflation, probably the most popular measure of inflation people are aware of and know about. Lots of things are tied to the CPI. For instance, like increases in Social Security. From May to April, just 1 month, it was up 1%. 1% inflation in 1 month, okay? For a rolling 12 months, so over the last 12 months, 8.6% inflation. 8.6%. So if you were to take $100, okay, $100, and just leave it in the mattress, okay, this is how inflation works. You could basically say that you did that 12 months ago. Talking May, I guess, since we're using the data that's on the website here. At 8.6% inflation, that means that your $100 is now worth $91.40 because 8.6% of it has been inflated away, kind of reduces your purchasing power, your buying power of that $100. Now, that's bad enough. But there's a website called Shadow Stats that tracks some of these metrics where, hey, just legitimately, you can say what you want. We can go into motives and reasons and things like that. But the people who put out the CPI, the government, they have a vested interest in keeping that low. As I mentioned, Social Security payments, well, if they have to adjust Social Security payments for, say, 4% or 5%, right, wouldn't they like that to be lower, 2 or 3, if they could possibly do it? So the people doing the paying, the people controlling where they have to pay out, the people controlling the numbers, because when inflation's going high, people get worried. So the same people who are responsible and have to report on this stuff are the people that get to determine the calculation. Now, in my opinion, that's like telling a high school student, hey, you're going to take this exam at the end of the semester or whatever, but don't worry, you get to determine how the calculation, what is worth how many points, and maybe any give backs or anything like that. You get to determine how the score works. That does not sound like a very good idea. So there's this place called Shadow Stats, and they keep track of inflation in different measures. And if you go back like in 1980, and you use the same way that the government calculated inflation back in the 80s, right? Back in like 1980, and you just calculate it that same way today, we're not at 8.6, we're at 17% inflation. Okay, 17. That means your $100 from 12 months ago is worth $83. That's massive. So let me just give a brief example. Okay, something that we can probably all relate to. Gasoline. Right? Have you noticed at the pumps lately? Seems like your dollars just aren't stretching out as much. I was talking to somebody recently. It was like, you know, when was the last time, you put in gas, went to fill up your vehicle, and you actually hit the max at that gas station where you can't put any more gas in? They like cut you off, right? Was that happening 2 years ago? Probably not. And here's why. According to EIA.gov, again, I'll put some of these links in the description. You can go check this stuff out yourself. The gasoline prices, the average gasoline price of all fuel types in May of 2020 was $1.96 per gallon. 2 years later, May of 2022, right, last month, well, by the time this podcast comes out, might be a little over a month ago, it was $4.55 a gallon, okay? More than 30% increase in 2 years. So if you just average that over 2 years, that's 15% each year, right? Does that sound more like 17% inflation or more like 8.6? Okay. When's the last time you went to the grocery store? If you spent $100 before, are you spending closer to $108 now or $110, or is it more like $120? Okay. Think about your rent. I know people that are, just watching their rent increase, and it's just like, what is going on here? If you were spending $1,000 a month on rent 2 years ago, right, or let's say a year ago, 12 months ago, an 8.6% increase, let's just round that up to 10 for easy math. That would mean now you're paying $1,100. You went from $1,000 to $1,100. Now, is that accurate, or is it more like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, right? Well, $1,200 would be 20% increase. $1,300, that's a 30% increase, right? So I'll let you be the judge as to whether the 8.6 is a little more accurate, or if you think the 17% inflation is a little more accurate. Where I live in Realityville, that 8.6, maybe on average on some things, if you manipulate the numbers a little bit, but on the things that really matter, no, inflation is much more than 8% or 8.5%. And what happened in the 80s or the late 70s, the 80s, had this guy Paul Volcker, and he came in, and there's debate as to whether he did the right thing or whether he did too much too fast or whatever, but they had double-digit inflation rates, and he took rates up to nearly 20% interest rates in order to try and stop the inflation. Remember, the Fed right now, in order to stop 8.5% inflation, they're raising the interest rates by 0.75%. Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I guess we'll find out if that's going to work. But again, easy math. If interest rates are 6 and inflation is 8, you still have net inflation of 2%, and that means actually negative real rates. What's the real interest rate? 6%, right? 8%, it's -2. So we'll see. We'll see how things happen. But what does this do? Well, when you're paying 8, 12, 20% more for gas, for groceries, for rent, what's that going to do to you? Your cash flow gets squeezed. You don't have as much money to do other things. Hopefully you have enough to get the necessities like food, shelter, clothing, transportation. But it starts getting squeezed. It starts getting tight, right? And God forbid you're going out and you're putting all that stuff on a credit card where the credit card is already at 19% or 20% interest, and the interest rates are going up. So you can see how this is going to start hurting people and squeezing people and really starting to cause issues, and already is causing issues in the economy. Well, the other thing is the unemployment rate, right? As companies see interest rates going up, and of course companies, they don't get 30-year fixed debt, right? A lot of times they borrow on some kind of a revolver, or they borrow on lines of credit, or maybe locked in rates for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or whatever. So they are watching and going, oh my goodness, right? We did have great rates. Now rates are going up. They're having the same problem, right? They're seeing inflation. So if you think about, excuse me, you think about a company that makes cereal, right? All the inputs that go into that cereal, the packaging, the cardboard or whatever it is, the ingredients, right? Whatever's in cereal, right? There's 490 ingredients on the back of a cereal, but all that stuff costs money. If you are making $1 per box of cereal, and then all of your costs go up $1.25, are you just going to keep making cereal and lose 25 cents every single box? No, you're not. You're either going to, and a lot of companies are doing both, you're going to raise prices, and you're going to do what you might have heard the term shrinkflation. You ever notice those boxes of cereal, they get thinner, smaller. You open the bag, and the bag used to be 80% full. Now it's 70% full, right? I've noticed some of this stuff. I'll tell my wife sometimes, oh my goodness, I remember when this, I don't know, paper towels, you can look and see how much thinner a paper towel, the same paper towel, same brand, everything, used to be this thick, now it's this thick. Lots of stuff like that happening. I think I bought a bag of chips recently, and it was the party size. I'm like, I guess the parties are getting smaller because the party size, used to be this big, and now it's this big. That's shrinkflation, where they're charging you the same amount of money, but they're putting less in there. And then the other is just straight up upping the cost. And a lot of times they're doing both. They're taking that box of cereal, they're upping it to, maybe their margin was $1, but they know they can't start charging, $2.25. So they charge $1.75 or whatever. They up it a little bit. And then they also shrink what they're giving you at the same time to try and even that out. Well, companies are hurting, right? You've got people losing money in stocks, in bonds, in crypto, in everything. And these people are going to what? A lot of them are going to have to start going back to work where maybe they were making money or they felt wealthier, so they thought they could hang for a little while. They were putting a little money on debt because it was so cheap. Why not borrow at 1.5%, 2.5%, whatever? But companies are struggling too. They're starting to see the inflation, the interest rates, all this stuff. And at the same time that people are coming into the workforce again, or needing more money from pay and stuff because of their rising costs, the company is going to be looking at what? Layoffs. They're going to be looking at no raises this year. They're going to look at cuts, because one of the biggest and most expensive costs of any company is their payroll. And so what's going to happen? People getting shifted down to part-time instead of full-time to save on costs there. They're going to, we used to be very comfortable with 5 employees and everything was really smooth and nobody was overworked at all. But now we're going to cut back to 3, and it's cheaper for the company to stay afloat and be able to pay its bills and reduce the workforce. And so people might start seeing, and again, you've probably seen in the news, places like Tesla talking about layoffs, right? You've got big companies like, take Amazon or Apple, and again, I don't know for certain what any of these companies are going to do. There are no certainties. It's probabilities. Of course, Tesla, they've kind of said it. So maybe not certain, but it's 99% probable, right? These are all starting to coalesce. They're coming to a head. And the economy as a whole, again, the stock market, some of the research I did here, tradingeconomics.com, and I'll put, again, this link in here. You can go look at some of it. The U.S. stock market index, right? The index of the stock market started 22 around 37,000 and has now been below 30,000, right? So you're talking 401k, IRA, investments, mutual funds, companies investing, your school 501(b) and things like that, right? All these things, what? They lost 10%, 15%, 20%, maybe even more if you're in riskier types of stocks. Bonds are in a similar situation. According to a Market Watch, I quote, investment grade corporate bond market's total return was negative 12.3% on the year through April 29, right? I mean, when the stocks are going down, bonds are supposed to be safe, right? Nope, they've lost 12.3% according to Market Watch as of April 29. Crypto. All right, let's run to crypto. Give me some Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, right? Wrong. The overall value, according to Finbold, the overall value of the global cryptocurrency market cap was $2.2 trillion on January 1st, 2022. But as of the time of this article, May 20th, it was $1.29 trillion, representing a decline of 41.36% since the beginning of the year. Whoa. Imagine losing 41% of the value of what you were holding in less than 5 months. Again, this is happening all over the place. It's not to try and scare people. It's not to try and, it's Armageddon. It's to get people to look, to think, to change behaviors so that we are prepared, we're ready, we are kind of hunkered down. Again, I'm not telling you what to do. I don't know you, so I don't know your personal investment strategy. I don't know your portfolio. I don't know, how diversified you are into all these different things or whatever. But again, if you are in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and cryptocurrency, I could tell you that on average, you've probably lost somewhere between 20 and 40% of the value of your holdings in 6 months. That is not fantastic. Okay. So what are we looking at here? We need to take a breath. We need to educate ourselves. We need to realize and look into the face of this coming storm, because yes, interest rates rising, high inflation, unemployment still TBD, but very possible that starts to become more prevalent. We need to again be wise in these things. And it's hard to be wise when you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, or you know what you don't know, you still don't know it, right? And so I'm putting this stuff out to get us to think about these things and to try and help us to realize, navigate, make some conscious choices about things, but just get that information out there. So I do want to put this in a kingdom context, thinking about the kingdom of God, okay? So I guess right now at 28 minutes, people that did not care about all the other stuff can tune back in. 1 Corinthians 15:19 says, if in Christ we have hope in this life only, we are of all people most to be pitied. And I'm telling you, we should make sure that our focus is on things eternal. It's not on temporal things, it's on eternal things. That does not mean I've heard people, take those pot shots at Christianity, or like set up a straw man and like, look at me, I'm so awesome, I can beat the stuffing out of this scarecrow, literally, right? But that's just not, the scriptures do not teach not to be, they don't teach, don't worry about being frugal, don't worry about being wise with your money and your finances, just have hope in eternity and just then be a complete financial loser. It just doesn't teach that, right? Let's go to Matthew 6:19 through 21. Let's just show it. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So the scriptures are worried about where your heart is really settling, where you're really focused, where your affections are. There's nothing wrong with being rich or having money as long as your affections are not on that thing. That's not where you put your ultimate hope and trust. 1 Timothy 6:17 through 19. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches. It doesn't say tell them to sell everything they have because it's better to be poor. It does not say that. It says don't be proud, don't be lifted up in pride, don't be haughty and high-minded, and don't set your hope on those riches. Don't let that be where your ultimate hope is. Then it goes on. Again, this is 1 Timothy 6:17. But on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. So put your hope in God, have the riches, great, but let your hope be in God. So verse 18 then says, they are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. So it doesn't say get rid of all their riches. It's more blessed to be poor, and riches are evil and of the devil, and then they can be real Christians. It doesn't say that. Rightly prioritize your wealth. Be ready to be rich in good works and to share and not be stingy and all these things. And in so doing, you're storing up that good treasure. Doesn't say don't have physical treasure here. It says, hey, if you've got it, make sure you're also storing up that kingdom heavenly treasure, right? Proverbs 11:28, whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. It's the idea of where you put your trust. That's what the Bible is most concerned with. Now, you've probably heard people say things, money is the root of all evil. One of the most abused, misquoted scriptures of all time. And usually you'll find it coming from people that don't have any money. I'm not sure if I don't think there's any causation with people don't have money and they also don't know how to properly quote or study the Bible, but there's certainly a correlation with this verse. It's unbelievable. 1 Timothy 6:10 says this, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving. What craving? The love of money, that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. And that's totally true. People chasing wealth, chasing riches. We've already read in Proverbs that the blessing of the Lord makes rich and he adds no sorrow with it. Again, God is not against wealth. He's not against riches. He's against, sometimes I'll say it this way. God does not have a problem if you have a hold on riches. His problem is when the riches have a hold on you. Doesn't care if you have riches, but do riches have you? Okay? That's the problem. And a lot of people, they start to put their trust, they start to get high-minded, proud, stingy, greedy for more, all this kind of stuff, and that's where it becomes a problem. That's where it becomes sin and can lead people to really ultimate destruction. But it's not the riches themselves, okay? Money is just money. Money's not good or bad. Love of money, now that's what's bad. So now Luke 12:16 through 21 says, and he told them a parable saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. He thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. He said, I will do this. I'll tear down my barns, build larger ones. There I'll store my grain, my goods. I'll say to my soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. So first, lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. So you need to be rich toward God as well, just like we read in Paul's admonition to Timothy about how to deal with people that are wealthy. And we need to see that, hey, building bigger barns isn't a problem. Being plentiful isn't a problem. The problem is when you say, my soul, you're good to go, eat, relax, drink, and all this stuff. And that's the problem. You now start focusing on that, the earthly goods, the worldly gain, and not not as concerned about your soul. You trust in those things instead of where your trust really should be. So being rich isn't an issue, right? And being poor is not inherently virtuous, right? There are jerks who are rich and there's jerks who are poor. Okay, there's sinners who are rich and there's sinners who are poor. I mean, there's stingy people that are rich and there's stingy people that are poor. Okay, so we need to realize that it's not in the money itself; it's in where you put your heart, where you put your trust. Okay, and so of course we're studying the book of Proverbs, and that's the book of wisdom. So we need to have wisdom and be wise in our money. And this is why we're talking about some of the things going on in the economy, the economy in general. You got to remember that the economy is looking like we're in a recession. The official definition of recession is 2 quarters of negative GDP, which is the gross domestic product. It's the kind of the overall output of the economy is what it's trying to measure. And as of the last quarter, right, January, February, March, 1 quarter, it was negative. And so if the report comes out in June that it is negative again, that's the official definition of a recession. But really, I mean, come on. The recessionary vibe is clearly in the air. Things are contracting, restricted. I mean, we're not booming, just look at the trade deficits right now. So again, and sometimes those things are a little bit tricky and can be manipulated as well, because people, look at the amazing value of our the money people spent on imports. People, look at all this money people spent on imports. Or are you looking at the money, or are you looking at the actual quantity, right? Because guess what? If I buy the same thing and it's 200% more money, it looks like I bought even more, but I didn't. The price just went up. Okay? These are the kinds of things and ways that the numbers can be manipulated. And so again, doesn't matter if we're in an official recession. Doesn't really matter. People are hurting. People are struggling. You got inflation, unemployment, all this kind of stuff, right? And so we need to be wise. We're studying Proverbs. Let's be wise in our money. The next session, I think we're going to talk about just some wise things to do in general. Doesn't matter what the economy is doing. Doesn't matter. We'll just talk about a few things that help us to have a better financial picture. Right now, I'm going to suggest a couple of good resources. One of them is his name is Robert. I already mentioned last time, right, about Dave Ramsey and some of his stuff. The other one is Robert Kiyosaki. Now, the way I look at this, Dave Ramsey's for like the 99% of people. Hey, get out of debt. Consumer debt. Talked about that last time. Go check it out. Get out of consumer debt. Don't be racking up those credit cards just to buy stuff and consume and have material gain and all this stuff. You got the debt snowball and all this stuff. Robert Kiyosaki, I say, is like kind of that next level where it's not that all debt is always bad all the time. And I don't think that even Dave Ramsey says that. But sometimes you can come away with that vibe that having any kind of debt is just a horrible, terrible, evil, awful thing, and we should never do it. Because if your debt is making you money more than the payments on the debt and more than that you've got cash flow coming in and stuff, was that bad debt? I would say it depends, right? But you got to look at it. And Robert Kiyosaki, he's got a very famous book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Great book to go look at or listen to. I would highly suggest that. He's got a podcast as well. And well, you know what? I'm just going to suggest that one because we've already got Dave Ramsey as a good resource, Total Money Makeover and those things, and he's got a podcast. Then Robert Kiyosaki, you can Rich Dad, Poor Dad Radio, I think is the name of the podcast. Type Rich Dad, Poor Dad into any podcast service, and you're going to find his podcast. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to drop it right there, and then next time I might suggest some specifics when we talk about things to do and how to have a better financial picture. I'll talk about some people that you might want to follow if you're interested in like things like investing, if you're interested in real estate, just if you're interested in bettering your tax situation. I'll try to incorporate some of that to help you. Now, I realize, again, some people, this is like, whatever, just, give me my paycheck and I'll just, when Jesus comes, it's all going to be done. Okay. But he may not come back for quite a while now. Not really sure. And I suggest trying to be as wise with your wealth, your job, your work, all of that as you possibly can until he returns. Because when we have a little more money, a little more wealth, a little more resources, it makes it even easier for the kingdom of God to do its thing. When the people of God have money, resources, wealth, the people of God can do even more than if they were all just poor and all living in a compound somewhere. So again, I love you. I hope this has helped. Trying to keep it a little bit shorter this time because we went through some math and numbers and figures and all that, and it just really puts a lot of people to sleep. So again, let me know if this has helped you. Definitely like to hear that good feedback. Love you. God bless you. And we will catch you on the next podcast.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that content from BreadBreakers. If you enjoyed the content, give us that thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions on future content or anything like that, don't forget to leave us a comment in the comment section. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way, every time we put out something new, a new video, a new interview, whatever it might be, you will be notified. We will throw some additional videos and playlists up here on the screen. And as always, God bless you. We'll catch you on the next video.